Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jessica, and in today's video, we will be creating my June's bullet journal spread. So the theme for June is Studio Ghibli, and as you can see, my intro page is Spirited Away. It is the scene on which Chihiro and No Face are riding on the train. I feel like it's a very iconic scene, and so I wanted to create it for my intro to June. And so I'm happy with overall how it turned out. I do think it could be improved upon, but working with materials that I had, I think I did a fairly decent job. So the bullet journal I am using is the Scribbles That Matter. It's their vintage iconic version, 160 GSM paper, and let me just tell you that the paper holds up very well to watercolors. I did use quite a bit of water more towards the center of the pages, and so the pages did buckle, but there was no bleed through on the other pages, so that's a plus. And with the buckling, all I did was I put the journal under a large stack of heavy books and I let it sit for about a day, and that got rid of most of the warping of the page. It's still like semi-warped, but I don't really mind too much. Overall, it held up very well to the watercolors. And so I went in with the Sakura Koi watercolors to create a base layer. With No Face being transparent, I wasn't sure how to convey that transparency other than using watercolors. And so I do think I was able to create that illusion that he is semi-transparent, and I'm happy with how that turned out. I'm going on top of the illustration to create the details with my Prismacolor Premier color pencils, and so I'm just kind of adjusting the colors of things, and I'm sharpening up the details and the contrast. The watercolor set I have is very small, and so my color palette is limited. And so with the color pencils on top, that just helped me to be able to get a more wide variety of color range for the illustration. And so I'm very happy with overall how this illustration turned out. I don't think it's my favorite illustration in the spread, but I am still pleased with it. I think it turned out regardless of kind of the struggles that I had with it. I would like to study more on learning how to make images seem transparent. I did struggle with that with No Face, of not wanting to make it too obvious there's lines going through him, but I don't know, I just kind of struggled a little bit with the concept of transparency. But other than that, I think the spread turned out very well, and so I just wrote June 2022 on the intro. And so now we're moving on to my monthly spread. For my monthly calendar spread, I used My Neighbor Totoro as the theme, and I'm very happy with how my monthly calendar came out. I went in with just markers, and so the illustrations are more flat compared to some of the other illustrations in June's spread. But regardless of that, I just think it looks very cute and clean. And I kind of wish I would have taken a more simple approach for some of the pages, but I was working with the materials I had, and my color palette was limited with some items, I would have preferred if I could have used markers for each illustration like I did for this spread, but my marker selection's limited. I have the Tombow brush markers, which is a water-based, so they don't really blend very well. And that's what I used for most of this illustration. However, Totoro is done with a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen, and I believe that is India ink, which actually blends relatively nice with other markers. The water-based markers don't blend as well together, but we're just working with what we got. And so I like how the monthly spread came out. I think it's really cute, and I'm happy with it. So now we're moving on to my financial spread. This is a page I plan to use for like finances, for budgeting, for my income, and for savings, and then to be able to track my overall spending for the month. I have a expense tracker so I can fill in what I spend instead of just relying on kind of like my bank accounts. I want to write it down and do it kind of the old-fashioned way, just to get a better idea of my spending habits and so I can save money better. I have a wedding and a honeymoon that I need to save for next year, and so I really want to get kind of my finances in orders and really start saving, because it's something that I'm not the best of. And so I'm really hoping that the spread, being able to visually see it and like physically touch, I don't do very well with electronic organization. I gotta write it down kind of person. And so I'm hoping this spread will really help. I'm not sure why the focus is messed up here. I think I was trying to focus on the tip of the pen, so I apologize for that. I wish I would have noticed it when I was recording, but I didn't. And now we've moved on to my weekly spread. So for my weekly spread, it's just 8 boxes on each page, and 7 of those are obviously for each day of the week. 1 is for notes for anything specific that I would like to maybe get done that week, but not on a specific day, or just random notes. Even though the month started on a Wednesday, I still filled in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday on the beginning of the weekly spread, but at the end, I didn't do that. I ended it with only 6 boxes instead of the full 8. I just preferred it that way, I suppose. I guess I didn't need the top 4 boxes for this page that I'm currently working on, but I just put it there anyway. And so on the financial page and my weekly spread, both have just like Soot Sprites on them and some of the Soot Sprite candies, because there's not a whole lot of room on those pages. Now I'm working on Calcifer from Howl's Moving Castle. One of my favorite characters, my favorite Studio Ghibli movie. Howl's Moving Castle is my absolute favorite Studio Ghibli movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. And so I was really happy to create this little illustration of Calcifer. I think it turned out great. It did, however, I went in a little too heavy-handed with the markers, attempting to blend the yellow, orange, and red. And so it did bleed onto the other side because these are water-based markers, and I used way too much attempting to blend markers that don't blend together. But I kind of went in with color pencils on top to finish the blending, and I think that really helped. It's not that big of a deal that it bled through the pages because it's just weekly spreads on the other side, so it's nothing super important. And now I'm working on Howl and Sophie. So I spent a long time sketching the illustration, and for the most part, I'm really happy with it. I do struggle with character designs in being too stiff with posing if I come up with posing myself. And I did come up with this pose kind of myself. I didn't reference any specific pose from images online. I used, I have those little kind of like anime pose dolls. I'm not entirely sure what you would call them. But I have a male version and a female version. And I just kind of posed them together to make it look like they were almost dancing. And that really helped me to kind of get their proportions and the pose down. But I still feel like the pose was too stiff. So that's something that I need to work on for the future, is to really improve upon making my illustrations have more flow, to make them looser. I'm a very kind of stiff artist almost. I struggle with just being loose in my illustrations, and I think that shows with this illustration. Regardless though, it is still a cute illustration. One of my regrets though is all of the other illustrations have either a base layer of markers or watercolors, and I did not do that with this illustration. And the quality of it compared to the other illustrations, it really shows. Now, my marker collection is limited, so I didn't necessarily have colors that would have matched everything that I needed, but I do wish I would have went in on Sophie's dress with a base layer of markers, as well as Hal's pants. Oh, there goes my cat. She'll make another appearance later, so we'll get to see my cat Azura in a little bit, because she kind of plops down and hangs out for a little bit. I struggled with his pants though in getting the right color, as well as making it flat and smooth. The problem with color pencils is they kind of leave this speckliness to it, and you can typically fix that with a blending pen, and for the most part, and I would say everything other than Howl's pants and Sophie's dress, I was able to smooth it out and get it looking how I wanted. But I struggled smoothing his pants out and just making it look like one consistent flat color on Howl's pants. And somewhat the same with Sophie's dress. And so that my only regret really with these illustrations is I wish that the characters didn't look so stiff, and I wish I would have used a base layer of markers or watercolors. And so even though there's parts of the illustration that I'm not happy with, I am proud that I finished it regardless, because I feel like the process, I struggled with it. And I think it was because part of it was, I did a couple pages this day, and so this was towards the end of the day. This was probably like, I don't know, 8 in the evening. And so it was maybe like 9, 10 o'clock when I finally finished it. This illustration took a while, but I think I was just burnt out, and so I didn't necessarily have the foresight to think of adding a flat layer of color and then going on top like I did with the other illustrations. I think my brain was just kind of fried. And so it is what it is. I'm just proud that I finished it, and I'm happy that I have learned from my mistakes. There's Azura again. come to hang out. And she's gone. Now, I did try to go on top of Sophie's dress and Howl's pants with markers on top, and I think it helped to relieve some of the speckliness. And I tried blending out with like a tissue paper, but there wasn't much I could do at that point. I just had to accept that his pants and her dress were going to be kind of speckly, and that was just, that's how it was going to be. And so it's alright. I went in the background with marker, and I kind of wish I would have used watercolor instead, because the zebra fine liners, like highlighters that I have, which is what I'm using for the markers in the back, and my Tombow markers, they're both watercolor, and so they kind of are streaky, and so I think the sky could have looked smoother had I used watercolors. But I kind of accepted the streakiness and somewhat went in with cross-hatching, and overall I think that kind of like helped make it more stylized and almost intentional. If you make a mistake, do the Bob Ross thing. It wasn't a mistake, it was a happy accident. So since the sky was streaky, I just went with that, and I kind of added a crosshatch effect, which I think helped made the sky more intentional and artistic. So now I'm going in with the inking process, and I messed up Howl's eyeball. I messed up, I suppose it would be his left eye. It's his eye that's closest to Sophie. I messed up the hair that goes over it and his eye, and it was a whole process fixing his face, and I kind of struggled a lot with this illustration. And I do think part of it was because I was kind of burnt out. I wish I would have went to bed or quit for the evening and started this illustration fresh the next day. I think that would have helped, but it is what it is. The struggle with going over color pencil as well with a fine liner is the wax from the color pencils will gunk up your fine liner, and so it won't flow correctly. So periodically I was cleaning off my fine liner with a tissue, so I would definitely recommend that if you're using a fine liner on top of color pencils. I also fixed Howl's face with a acrylic paint marker, so as you can see, it doesn't look nearly as bad. I also used that acrylic paint marker to create the little stars in the background. So I'm just taking a black and kind of trying to make them pop from the background a little bit more, and going in and increasing the line weight in some places. Not my best illustration, but overall I'm happy with it, and I'm proud that I finished it, and I'm happy with the lessons that I learned from it. So now we've moved on to the end of the month recap page. For that page, it's just 3 boxes. It has favorite moments, lessons learned, and accomplishments. Definitely on lesson learned. I kind of wish I would have made it plural, lessons learned. But future reference, I will make lessons learned. I will make that box plural. But for now, it's a singular lesson, apparently. I'll definitely put in make base coat before going in with color pencils. I do believe I learned my lesson with Howl and Sophie. And so this is a different day, and so I was kind of more fresh-minded. I was more aware. I got to go in with some kind of a base coat before using color pencils. And I'm very happy with how the Iron Golem from Castle in the Sky came out. He turned out super good in my opinion. I'm just very pleased with his overall look. Like, he's somewhat sketchy, but I was also able to get a good amount of like detail and contrast in parts of it, and I'm just happy with how he turned out. I'm pleased that he's my kind of outro page. So my intro page was Spirited Away, and my outro page is Castle in the Sky. I feel like Castle in the Sky is not the most known Studio Ghibli movie, but the Iron Golem as a character design is one of my favorites. I just think he's so stinking cute, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, I could be wrong, but it would be kind of surprising if I was wrong, that the Iron Golems in Minecraft are based off of the Iron Golem from Castle in the Sky. Not only are they Iron Golems, but the Iron Golem from Castle in the Sky famously like holds up this little flower, and Iron Golems in Minecraft, when they are killed, drop poppy flowers. So I'm pretty sure they're the same. Pretty sure that the Minecraft ones are based off of him, and he's just so stinking cute. I kind of wish I would have, there's like this little kind of pet that's on his shoulder. I wish I would have added that. But that's pretty much it for the illustrations. I'm happy with how all the spreads turned out, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching. If you made it through to the end and you wouldn't mind liking this video, I'd greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. I plan on creating more bullet journal themed videos in the coming months, because I have a completely new journal, and so basically the whole beginning half will be trackers and future logs and whatnot, and so I would love to record that. And so I think for future content it will be bullet journal themed for the next while, and then after I get those beginning pages complete, it will kind of vary what content that I post. So I hope that you've enjoyed my bullet journal video, because I plan on doing a lot more. And if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch for watching, and until next time, I bid you all a very fond farewell, and bye-bye.